Okay, so to create a flow chart, to demonstrate your program flow, a lot of people will just choose to write stuff on paper, and that's fine. But, I just refreshed, I went back to the start, it's okay. But you may want to use an online tool, and there are a couple. So one is called Pencil, and you get Pencil, there's a link there for it, online, and you have to download something. So the thing about Pencil is that it's something you install on your machine, and some people really like it. It has more than just the ability to make flow charts. It also will let you make some wireframes if you want to do that. So it's got some like little button and checkbox widgets and things like that. It has widgets that resemble what you might see on mobiles, although those look pretty like 1980s to me or something. And then some iOS kind of little widgets that you can use. So Pencil can be used for more than just flowcharts. It also has just normal common shapes, so you can use it to make like a diagram or something. But we're going to look at the flowchart one. So it's nice because it tells you what the symbols stand for, sort of in conventional understanding of flowcharts. So you just drag stuff over. So you can say, for example, remove, what is that thing called on the bread? What?
Bread clip.
Yeah, okay, we'll call it remove bread clip from bread package. And then you can just drag over another one. So you can, and it, it does this little bit of alignment stuff for you. That's kind of nice. And then you can connect them together with arrows, which you can drag the points to the points on the thing. So that's kind of nice. All right, pretty easy to use, not bad. Then there's an online tool, if you prefer to use an online tool, called Lucidchart, and you can get a free. You have to sign up, but there's a free option that's free for life, and you can do basic stuff with it. It's fine for making flowcharts, and it's pretty nice. Here's a little demo running, because you just drag the arrows down from the box. I kind of like that instead of having to add the arrows. That's pretty sweet. You can color it. It's kind of nice. You can change the style of the arrows, change the color of the arrows, the style of them. So you can look for more shapes. There's a library of shapes. So if you want to use some different shapes other than the ones that are in the kind of default toolbox that show up over there. You can share. So you can share your diagrams online with other people. You put in their email address, they'll get a link to it, and they can look at it online. So that's kind of nice for collaboration, instead of emailing stuff back and forth or screenshotting and sending pictures over Slack. It's got a nice search feature to let you search for things. So yeah, so I think I like Lucidchart. It's pretty cool. You do. It also tells you what the things are traditionally used for in flowcharts. So that's a terminator, a decision point, and just drag up the arrows. Yep. And then you can, I don't even know how I did that. There we go. So that's pretty sweet, and it puts the little yes in there. That's nice too. I like that, so you don't have to add a yes with a little text box. That's pretty sweet. And then I'm sure you can change which one's the yes and which one's the no and that sort of thing. So I like that. We're going to do a little flowchart together just on the whiteboard, because it'll be faster than me doing it with a tool. Generally what you might want to do is, while you're kind of brainstorming out your solution and designing your solution, you might do it out on paper, just because generally still we kind of naturally do things quicker if we're just drawing it out on paper. But when you want to submit it, maybe you build a nice, a nice pretty one that's readable that you submit, because if you were working professionally, wanted to share this with your team, you might want it, you know, to look at. It depends on how nice your writing is, I guess, and how nice your drawing is. Yes, Aiden. Well, a flowchart just has a little bit of convention around it. So, for example, decision points are noted, where we loop is noted, and things like that. And so what you do is you kind of usually start with like written text. This is basically what I want to do. Then if there's any complexity in it at all, and if you do anything interesting, there's some complexity in it. So there's going to be some looping involved. There's going to be some conditional statements. In some places, the logic might get a bit confusing. There might be multiple loop terminators or something like that. Yeah. So drawing out the flow chart can make it really clear. This is where I need to have a loop, and this is where I need to have an if statement. This makes more sense for a case statement. It just kind of lets you visually see this is what the structure of my program is going to look like at a high level. Or you might make a flow chart even for one part of your program, just for one algorithm that might be a little bit tricky. So let's use a practical example first. Yeah, Caitlin?
I have an example of just how the pseudocode can be really helpful. So
Yeah.
at the internship I just did, I was doing modified programming, and my friend and I would be working on different parts of the app, but then we'd have to go back into maybe a component that one or the other might have made, and then add another function or check something. And so what we kind of got in the habit of doing was writing pseudocode in comments at the top of the particular file that you needed, and that way we could quickly scan and read, and we might have written maybe a possible solution in brackets or something, be like, make a loop for this, or like try this as a different thing. And we'd also say like, I've done this, or still needs work and whatnot. And it's probably better tools to keep track of that. But if you're building something quickly and it's something really small, I think just putting it in comments inside of the text is really helpful.
I think that's a great idea, because we'll also talk about code commenting and how important it is to comment your code. And it's a really good way to do things is to write your pseudocode, have that as comments just at the top of your file, and then just fill in the pieces, let that be the basis for your comments that's explaining the flow of your code, and then just start putting code in between those comments. It's a really good practice that can work really well. So maybe I'll have a go at building this in here just so I can record it for those who are watching. So I'm going to delete what's here, and we're going to look at the case of starting a car. So I know not everybody in here has driven a car before, but I think everybody in here generally knows how to start a car. Okay? And some people will know more about starting a car than other people, and that's all right. We're going to take advantage of our collective knowledge on starting a car. So we're going to start with an assumption that you're sitting in the car and you have the key, and that it's a car that uses a key. Because some cars don't use keys anymore, they just have like little buttons that you push. So we're going to assume that it's a car. Let's say it's like a 1990s model car, or 2000s, like 90s are a long time ago now, aren't they? So let's say it's like a 10-year-old car, all right? So it doesn't have all the like super fancy stuff or anything. It's just, it's like a 10-year-old, 15-year-old car. We're sitting in the car and we have the key, okay? We're going to assume that's where we start. We're sitting in the car, the door's shut, and we have the key, all right? So we're going to make a flow chart for a procedure to start the car. We're going to do this together. I'm going to go back here. Okay. So we have a blank diagram. So what is the first thing that we need to do? Somebody can volunteer something. Yes, Aiden. Yes. I can't hear you, Aiden. Are you sure? Okay. All right.
I'm not car.
We're in the car. We're in the car. We're in the car. We're in the car with the door shut, and we have the key.
Okay.
All right, so that's our starting point. So what do we do first? Put key in ignition. I like that. That's a pretty good start. Okay, so we're gonna put key in ignition. Okay. Yep, that sounds like a pretty good start. What next?
Turn key clockwise.
Oh wait, this is the wrong kind of box, I think. Hold on. I got the wrong kind of box. Okay. Turn key clockwise.
3 steps. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3. Oh, so 3.
So you've got full key and key hold, and then put to ignition. There's multiple positions.
Yeah, so we're gonna turn it. We're gonna turn it clockwise.
To ignition.
Yeah, to. And then how long should we hold it there?
3 seconds. Until engine starts.
So imagine that we've turned the key and it's just. Okay, so first let's assume it starts. About how long do we anticipate it's going to start? I know it'll depend on the car. Let's have a general. This 3 seconds for 3 seconds or
Till prompted, till engine prompted.
until engine starts. Okay, now what if it's a manual?
Put on clutch.
Yeah, sometimes in a manual you have to actually have the clutch
Then
in.
you can on your brake as well.
Yeah, and you probably want your foot on the brake. So okay, we haven't dealt with that. So before we turn the key, what do we need to do? Do we need to check to see if it's a manual or an automatic?
I think you should do it when you're on the car.
But let's say that we want to give really explicit instructions and we're not sure. Let's say we have both a manual and an automatic car. And we're not sure which one we're sitting in. We have to have general. So if we could say, okay, we could say put transmission in neutral. Will we do that in either case? No. Not in an automatic. You have to put it in park. So maybe we need to have a question here.
Question first is if it's manual or auto.
Yeah, so let's put a question. So I'm just going to move these guys down. And we're going to have a question. So a question is a decision point. And we're going to say automatic. So we're just going to ask a yes/no question. So we try to frame questions as yes/no questions because in code we write conditionals, and conditionals evaluate booleans, and booleans are true or false. They're yes or no. So we want to write our decision points as yes/no questions. So if it's an automatic, if the answer is yes, what do we want to do? We want to put it in park, make sure it's in park. Maybe, but let's not make any assumptions. So we'll say put transmission in park. So this is the yes. And if it's not, then we're going to put it in neutral. Does that sound all right? Now, we probably also, though, want to put our foot on the brake before we put it in neutral in case we're on a hill. Yeah? Okay, so before this point, let's say put our foot on the brake. That's probably a good idea. Otherwise, we might roll down the hill. Okay, so put foot, deploy brake. I'll say deploy brake.
But also clutch. Because if you got to put it in neutral, you need to.
Yeah, deploy brake, and then we'll deploy clutch. Okay, so, and then we'll put it in neutral. All right, so let's connect the, oops. Okay. So now, in either case, at this point, we would turn the key. Do we agree? Is that right? Does that sound right? So if we're in a manual, we've put in the brake, we put in the clutch, we put it in neutral. Do we turn the key?
You would have done that before putting it in neutral or in park or whatever.
Would you turn the key
Oh yeah.
to
definitely.
start it?
Before, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. So if
Like
you're
when you
in,
move through gears,
if
they-
you're in a manual, say it's in first gear, and you just start the car, what is it going to do? It's going to stall.
But you're not putting the transmission into neutral when your car is in park.
Well, it
So-
depends.
so-
So you're either going to put in the clutch. So when I get into an automatic, there's more than one way to do it. I would put on the brake. I would. Some automatics, some manuals, you have to put in the clutch to start it.
Yeah.
Some of them you do, some of them you don't, but some of them you do, right? So if it's like an old enough car, then I just put on the brake, put it in neutral, and start it. If it's in, put it in neutral and start it. But some cars you have to have the clutch in to actually get it to start. So the newer ones you do. So let's assume that if we put in the brake and put it in neutral and start it, that would work in either case, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's go with that one, right? So we need to put on the brake, deploy the clutch, put it in neutral, then we can turn the key. And if we're in an automatic, we just put it in park, then we can turn the key. Yep, so we agree that so far so good. So either one of these then will lead to this, right?
Most was, yeah, I used to start into
Do you have to push the brake in too? Yeah, sometimes you do. Maybe we should just say push in the brake just for good measure. Okay, so we'll just add another deploy brake here. Yeah, you're right. No, that's right. That's right. Absolutely right. Thank you for that. Okay. All right. So we're pretty happy with this. Okay. Now, what if it doesn't start? So we said we're going to turn the key clockwise to ignition for 3 seconds or until the engine starts. What if it doesn't start the first time? So we turn it for 3 seconds, it doesn't start. Should we try again?
Call IRCQ.
Yeah.
Just been telling them.
Hmm?
If car starts, proceed else. Start trying.
Else, maybe, do we want, sometimes, I've had cars, especially cars that are like 15 years old, they don't start the first time.
That'd be a
You
decision
know?
point, if else they
You get it.
work with a decision point.
We got to try again. So we need to check, did the car start? Do we agree that? That's what we need to do next. So we need to check after this. Car started. And if it did start, then we're done, right? So we have a terminator. Okay. But if it didn't start, what should we do? Yeah, so we'll want to turn the key back, and then we'll want to, if we assume, we probably also want to we won't worry about taking our foot off the brake or putting it in drive or anything like that. We're just saying we're just starting the car. Okay, so if it doesn't work, we've already only turned the key for 3 seconds, and then we've let it go back. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so turn the key clockwise in ignition for 3 seconds. So if we say for 3 seconds, after the 3 seconds, I think we're releasing that.
I don't think we should have 4 until engine starts.
No? Because what if it starts in less than 3 seconds
And
is
when
the
it
idea.
hasn't started, you just hold it and it's going over.
Well, that's why we're saying only turn it for 3 seconds.
Okay.
Unless the engine starts, then you don't have to turn it for 3 seconds. You can just turn it until the engine starts or for 3 seconds. Which honestly, in that one box, there's, we probably could break that down even further, that one box, but we'll leave it for the moment. So if the car doesn't start, do we just need to go back and try to turn the key again? Okay.
Some people don't they accelerate it? Some people do.
Yeah, you might need to press the gas a bit, give it a bit of gas so we can put that in. Give it some gas. That's how an American would say it.
I'm gonna say yes.
And then we start again. Now, do we want to do this forever? No, probably not.
Depends on the
Yeah. So we probably want to do it maybe, what, like 5 times or something? Yeah, we'll give it a go 5 times. So we would just add maybe a little note here. Let me fix that. Let's fix the top here. Okay, so I think this is pretty good. So we put the key in the ignition. We check to see if it's automatic or not. And if it's automatic, then we put the transmission in park, deploy the brake, turn the key clockwise in ignition for 3 seconds or until it starts. Oh, we forgot to draw an arrow. Forgot to draw an arrow here. Then we see, okay, did the car start? And if it did start, we're done. And if it didn't start, we give it some gas. We try again. We do that 5 times. And if we've tried it 5 times, then we probably need another. Actually, probably need to, over here, we need to interject. I'm going to interject something here. I'm going to interject one of these and say, tried 5 times. So we can be really explicit. And if the answer is yes, then we're going to say call RACQ. And if it's no, we'll try again. Oh wait, that was not the right place to put that. Thanks. No, we'll try again. Okay. Okay. And if it is, go back up here, if it isn't automatic, so it's a manual, we deploy the brake, deploy the clutch, put the transmission in neutral, turn the key clockwise, and the same thing. If it started, we're done. And if it didn't start, we see if we tried it 5 times, give it some gas, and if we fail, call RACQ. So this looks pretty good, right? So this is all just to start the car, you know? Just to start the car. So, and if we were going to write a program that did this, we can look at this flow chart and see where we're going to need some variables to store information temporarily, where we're going to need a loop. There's a really clear loop there that we're going to execute 5 times. So we're going to need a counter to keep track of how many times we've gone through that loop. And we can see where we have if statements. That's where the diamonds are. We have if statements or their loop terminators. And it becomes really clear how we would write this program. It's not very hard to go from this. Once you're comfortable with the basics of writing in a particular language, it would be really easy to go from this flow chart to code. It's super easy. You've already worked out all the stuff that you need, the information you need to keep track of, and the steps that need to be done. right? So this is a bit of a trivial case, but you can see even in a trivial case, like there's a lot of stuff in that flowchart. It's not like 3 things. When you first think about it, you're like, oh, you just do this, this, and this, and then you're done. But when you think about it in procedural detail, then you realize that there's a lot more that you have to keep track of. That's always the way it is when you write code too. You'll think, oh, it'll be easy to do this thing that I want to do. I'm going to build something that, I'm going to build a hangman program. That won't be too hard. I love playing hangman. That'll be easy. So I'll just have this collection of words, and then I'll just, write out little blank spaces for the letters, and then I'll let the user input letters, and I'll check to see if those letters are in my word. And if they're, it seems pretty simple. Like, that wouldn't be too hard. I can do that in an hour or so. And you start doing it, and you realize, oh, there's actually, you end up with like 500 lines of code, and you're like, whoa, all right, it wasn't as easy as I thought. So that's how programming is. And if you have anything that's complicated at all, and sometimes you don't realize it's complicated when you're thinking through it at the start, but you start to try to program it, and you're like, ooh, well, hold on, what if this happens? You might have multiple circumstances that terminate a loop, or different ways that things have to be handled depending on 3 different variables. And so if it starts to get complicated and you're getting confused trying to write it out, stop, pause for a moment, write out a quick flow chart just for that piece. It clarifies in your mind what you're trying to do, and then makes it really easy to go from that flow chart to implementing it in code. It's a really good practice. All right, did that all make sense? Is that fairly straightforward? Cool. So I like this lucid chart. That's pretty nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Does that give us any other breakdown of the chart? Is there any, does like in Visio make like another page or something?
I've never used Visio, but Visio is another tool that I could put in here for Visio users.
Yeah, I think it's on that.
You can add more shapes. That's nice. Yeah, so I think this is pretty nice. It even has little brackets so you can group together things. You'd be like, this is my function. This part here's a function. Yeah, so you could see like this turning the key and the loop here. I would probably stick that in a function because you're gonna, this turn key bit here is probably a function in itself, and we'll call that multiple times in the loop. Yeah, sweet. All right, so I think that's all I have for slides. Let's take a look at. I think what was in the challenges for this is what I just went over with starting a car. So there won't be anything to do there. But after lunch, we will start to look at Ruby and some basic fundamentals. Okay, so we'll just look at some really fundamental things like what is Ruby. And maybe we'll have a chat about variables and methods, loops. We probably won't talk about loops. We'll just talk about variables, data types. We'll probably leave it at that today. And then we might have a little bit of a play in IRB. Okay? So it's only 11:30, but we'll take a break now. If you still don't have Ruby installed, maybe we'll address that together. And if you still don't have access to Canvas, does anybody still not have access to Canvas?